Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter. If this happened to be the first time you are joining, my name is Kelly Melissa Reinhart. I am the host of this show, and thank you so much for joining. If you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you click down the subscribe button so that you don't miss another episode. Or if you're watching it on any of the streaming platforms like E360 TV, Roku, Amazon, Fire, Google, Apple, whatever it happens to be, add this into your watch list, your wanna watch list, your I'm gonna watch it later list, whatever, wish list, whatever it's called. They're all different. So, whatever that list happens to be, so that you don't miss another episode, because I promise you, and I say this every single week, but seriously, the guests that I have are simply incredible. And on Mondays, I specifically talk to guests who are either advocates in the mental health space, professionals, or those with lived experience. And then I also go live on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And I bring guests who have a story to share, whatever they have been through in this thing that we call life, and really looking into that place of hope. So today, I actually don't have a guest, and that's okay because we are in this time right now that is around the holidays. No matter what you believe or you celebrate, this can be a pretty bonkers, I don't know, that's a word I've been using a lot lately. I don't want to say crazy, I don't want to say busy. I like to say bonkers because it doesn't have, I feel like it doesn't have as much effect on the heaviness. And I don't know if that resonates with you, but for me, when I say it's been busy or it's been crazy, then I reflect and I'm like, has it really? I mean, is it crazy? That's an emotion that I'm feeling, maybe, but I just like to say it's bonkers because that's kind of how it feels in my brain. It's like bong bong bong. I think of like ping pong balls going back and forth, bong 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 bong. That's how that's how my brain works. I don't know. So maybe that resonates with you, maybe it doesn't. That's okay. But this time of year can seem to be a little bonkers. And I had another word that was trying to pop in and then it went away. So that's okay. Um and it's really that time of year that we see people feeling pretty lonely. We see and hear people feeling pretty lonely. It is a time when maybe if you don't have family, or maybe you don't celebrate the holidays like others, it can feel pretty lonely. And it's a time where we're kind of like scrambling to get our work done because maybe we are somebody who is taking a vacation. Maybe we're going, like our family, you're flying to another state, another country, to be with your family for the holidays. And so you're trying to get everything wrapped up before you have to go. And it kind of, in a way, makes you feel a little bit lonely, potentially. Or maybe you are somebody who doesn't have that family and you're like, all I see all around me is all this Christmas stuff and this holiday stuff, and I don't even have anybody to celebrate with. Or maybe you're just feeling really isolated and you're not able to get out into the world as much as you want to. Maybe it's the lack of funds, maybe it's the lack of resources, maybe it's just that time of year. I know that a lot of people, not a lot of people, but there tends to be a little bit more loss that happens during this time. Why that happens, I'm not exactly sure, but I do know that, especially in the mental health, substance abuse, and suicide space, we oftentimes see, whether it's now or after the holidays, we we see the uptick of suicide specifically, and more so going into the new year. It's not like right before the holidays, although some people think that that is when it is. It actually is after the holidays. So and I don't know if that's that people are like, well, I got to get through the holidays and then. So we see kind of an uptick happening in January, February, March, and then going into summer when the seasons tend to change, actually. And if you live in a state that the seasons don't change, then you may not have as high. But in Colorado, where I'm at specifically, we tend to have a lot more like seasonal affective disorder, which is an actual, it's sad. That's what it's called. But it ultimately, we start going into the winter season and being cold and not being able to get out and about. And people in Colorado tend to be more outdoorsy, or they like to get out and about when we have like spring, summer, fall. It's a great time to explore. And then we go into winter and it gets really, really cold here. It hasn't, it, well, it has, but not for very long. So there's this myth out there about Colorado that we're like Antarctica, that we're constantly cold here. But the reality about Colorado, and I'm going to tell you the secret, but don't tell anybody else because we already have a ton of people that live here. But we have about 360 days of sunshine. And that just means that usually we leave the house with a jacket or a coat or a hoodie or something. Layers are the thing. And then by the afternoon, it may be warm, or vice versa. You leave and it's warmer and then it gets cold. So we have this saying in Colorado: if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes, because it tends to change and shift pretty often. So but with Colorado, we tend to have a higher or elevated number of people who experience SAD, or seasonal affective disorder. And what that means is that you can feel lonely, you can feel depressed, you can feel just like tired and exhausted and not really wanting to get out of the house. Or maybe you do want to get out of the house and then you're like, you look outside and there's snow, or it's cold, or it looks really warm, and then you step outside and you're like, I don't want to go outside. So we tend to, and in the states that have colder seasons like Colorado, there is a higher level of people who experience this type of mood shift. That's what I'm going to call it. Because it's not really, I mean, it is something that you can go and get diagnosed, but it really is this like mood shift, all about really this feelings of loneliness, feelings of isolation, feelings of depressed, maybe tired, exhausted, overwhelmed, whatever word you want to label it. But I want you to know, first and foremost, if you are somebody who experiences this or is maybe shifting that way, you're not alone. It happens to a lot of us, and some of us are just not aware that it is happening. But with the changing of the seasons, we tend to see elevated mental health challenges or mood disorders that kind of pop up. And that's what I want to talk about today, is this idea and these feelings that some people tend to have around this time of year. Also, it is a time when I gotta take a picture because it is 11:11 on the 11th right now. Sorry, I totally got distracted because I was like, oh my gosh. All right, sorry. Numbers are like a thing for me. So, but that's a whole nother conversation. I have just heard so many people that have reached out to me that are like, Kelli, I am having this challenge that I am just feeling really sad. I don't know why it's happening or what's happening. And then oftentimes I hear people say, I am just feeling really lonely. I don't know what's going on. And you could be surrounded by people and still feel lonely just because you have somebody next to you and just because you have lots of family or lots of coworkers or neighbors or anybody. You can still experience loneliness. And that's why, again, I want to give you some tools, a little bit of resources that you can take back and give yourself a little bit more choice. We always have choice in the emotions that we feel. Just sometimes it's really hard to shift because either we're not aware that it's happening or we're so deep in those emotions that it feels like heavy. It feels like a task to try to get out. And or maybe we don't have the necessary tools in our tool belt to be able to help ourselves. So that's what I want to give you. I like to call them tools in your tool belt to be able, and I always do the put the tools in my tool belt. That's more of like a holster, but it's fine. I like to give people tools in their tool belt so that you have more choice in what you're experiencing. And what brought this up actually was I am currently right now getting my International Coaching Federation certification for coaching. And during this process, we go back and we review the information that we learned in our practitioner training and then our master practitioner training. And I was reading up on some of this yesterday and I came across this page that I literally had no idea. So it's a giant book. I mean, if I can, let me see if I can lift it up here. But so this is the giant book of information that I have from all my certifications. And there was one page that popped up that I didn't even realize that was in here. That's how much information there is in this book. So I want to tell you about this page because I thought it was really interesting. If you've been watching me for a really long time, you have heard me say that words really truly matter. The words that we say to ourselves, the words that we say to others really truly matters. And specifically, are we treating ourselves how we would treat our friends? Sometimes we get harder on ourselves than anybody else in our life. And I oftentimes, when I'm having those thoughts of self doubt, being unworthy, maybe I have some imposter syndrome that's popping up, I start to think about, would I treat my friend this way? Is this something that I would expect my friends to say to me? And if I can honestly say, no way, that would be so hurtful. Like if somebody actually said this to me, I would feel really mad, really sad. And so, why am I treating myself this way if I expect others to be nicer and kinder to me? And so, I talk about how when we use certain words, I call it the Eeyore syndrome. So, nobody loves me, everybody hates me, I'm going to go eat worms. If I am outwardly saying, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, and I'm just going to be sad. That's what I'm going to really draw in. I'm going to draw in that energy. And I'm not telling you this to say that it's easy by any means to shift or change this, but I'm going to tell you how you can. So, the other is that if you are telling yourself, I'm a bad person, maybe another one that used to come up is if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have luck at all. Things like that. Or maybe you get on yourself about something. You're like, I'm stupid. Why do I do these things? I'm so dumb, or whatever those words are, right? Like I have a hard time saying them now because I've worked through those emotions to really build my confidence and my self-worth. And so those words don't come out really ever anymore, which is good. But I know in the past that that has. And I also learned how to move into not saying those things. So that's what I'm telling you this about. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because the pages that I found specifically, when we start to shift the way that we talk about ourselves to others and to ourselves, it helps us to ultimately release what I call the brain's happy juices. So those are your serotonin, your dopamine, your cortisol, and the oxytocin. So cortisol. Meh, yeah, cortisol. So here are the things that I found in my book. Get to the point, Kelli, right? So, adrenaline. This is your fight or flight response. When we have a lot of adrenaline, it's like back in the day, like caveman times, they really truly had to have the fight or flight instincts because they had to get away from all of the animals. That's where our fight and flight response comes in when we perceive a threat or a pain or we perceive danger. That's when our fight or flight kicks in, and that's when we get that adrenaline response going through our body. And so this is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but it can make you feel kind of uppity a little bit, I guess is the best word. Then you have your cortisol. So that is your stress response. And when you are overly stressed all the time, like some people I do know, you're dumping cortisol into your body, which is actually not good for your body. When you're over dumping that stress hormone into your body, it's hard for your body to react. So maybe you have increased temper. Maybe you go from 0 to red in 2.5 seconds. I know that one, or I did know that one in the past. Maybe you are constantly looking at the negatives versus the positives, and every little thing stresses you out. Work stresses you out, being with people stresses you out, not being with people stresses you out. Everything feels stressful to you. That's when you're dumping a whole bunch of cortisol into your body, which is not good for you. Then you have your dopamine. So your dopamine it really helps you relax, and it's a reward and pleasure for your body. So dopamine is a really great thing to have. Again, these are your happy juices that I call, or what I call your happy juices. Your endorphins, this helps you reduce pain and creates euphoria. So your endorphins, and the simplest way to help you release endorphins is simply smiling. A fake smile even helps because when you smile, it triggers the endorphins in your brain to be released. And I'm telling you, even if it's a fake smile, fake it till you make it. It helps to release the endorphins in your brain. And that has been scientifically proven. So you have insulin, which regulates your blood sugar. If you have diabetes, whether it's type 1 or type 2, you know this well. Insulin is that chemical. I don't know if I call it a chemical. It might be. I don't know. But it helps regulate your blood insulin. You have melatonin, which helps you sleep. It regulates the body and regulates your sleep. So if you're not releasing enough melatonin, that may lead to sleep challenges. If that's something, then your brain really, really, really needs sleep. Like if you're one of those people that's like, oh yeah, I only get about 4 hours of sleep and I'm just fine. Maybe, but most likely not. Our brain really truly needs, and that's why they talk about 7 to 8 hours of sleep, like good sleep, not just like intermittent sleep, but like good sleep. I I am not somebody who sleeps really well, except for I have found something, and I'll give you this tip too. I have found something that has been very helpful for me recently with sleep. So I'll add that tip in when I give you all the tips. So, but melatonin is that thing that will help regulate your body and help you sleep. So that's why they have pills and different things that you can get with melatonin, because our body sometimes doesn't produce enough of that. So if you're having sleep challenges, that might be. Plus, actually have two different tips that I'll give you towards that one. Oxytocin, that is your love hormone, and that could be love for yourself or love for another. So if you're not feeling overly loved, or maybe you're feeling like you don't love yourself, maybe you look in that mirror and you say, I hate myself, right? Would you ever want your friend to tell you that, first and foremost? But how can you look in that mirror and say, I love myself exactly how I am? When you are able to say that and really truly like come back to love, then your body will start to release more oxytocin, and that helps get those happy juices going. Or maybe it's a family member and you're like, oh my gosh, I love you so much. Maybe it's your spouse or your partner, whomever that might be. But the love hormone is really, really helpful, especially when we're talking about loneliness, depression, sad, or any of those type of disorders that come up around this time of year. And then the last one is serotonin. And it's a natural antidepressant. It also helps with well-being and happiness. So if you are somebody who really truly is experiencing depression, anxiety, and I'm going to talk about these specifically also, but if you're experiencing these things, then you may want to get your serotonin levels checked to just see what's going on. There are medications that they can help with this, but you can also boost those in so many different ways, natural ways, not necessarily with medication. So we will also talk about that. But on this page, it says, when your brain releases one of these chemicals, you feel good. And that is your dopamine, your serotonin, your oxytocin, and your endorphins, what I like to call your brain's happy juices. So I hope this is kind of helpful to kind of know where we're going with this conversation, but we're going to go to a quick sponsored break. Once we get back, I'm going to talk about how you can specifically help give you some of those tools to put in your tool belt so that you can move through if these start to come up at any point in time, especially now or in the future. So we'll be right back after this quick sponsored break.
Everybody, it's Portia Booker, and I'm your host of the Grief Grand Tour Show. Join me every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Vitality Network right here on E360 TV.
And like that, I'm back. I said we earlier. I tend to call, I think I have a mouse in my pocket whenever I don't have a guest. Thank you. If you happen to be joining now, thank you so much. And I am talking today. I don't have a guest today. So I am talking about our biochemistry, but really this idea and feelings of loneliness, sad or seasonal affective disorder, depression, anxiety. If you don't know about me yet, which if you've been watching for a long time, you probably do. But if you don't, I am the founder of BCC Evolution, which is a mental health and suicide awareness nonprofit. And I have gained lots of tools, lots of resources over the past couple of years after I lost my middle sister to a completed suicide in 2017. And these tools and these resources have really, really helped me through my healing journey, being able to have more choice, more wholeness in my life to move through whatever emotions that are coming up have been significantly helpful for me. So that's why I want to give this information back to you, so that if you are somebody who is experiencing loneliness, depression, sad, or any other type of mental health challenge or mood disorder or challenge in general that's coming up. I like to use the word challenge versus diagnosis, illness, disease, because again, it's not as heavy. So I was telling you about all the brain's happy juices and why it's beneficial to be able to release these and or not release them, not overly release them into our bodies, because that's what creates a lot of mental health challenges, to be honest. So, here is the part that I was super excited about, because I don't know how I missed this page going through 3 different trainings, practitioner, master practitioner, and then trainers and consulting. I missed this page. I don't know how, but it is called Mastering Emotions. And I want to just specifically touch on a couple of them. I'm not going to go over all of them because we only have about 30 minutes left. And for real, you probably don't want all this information. So, the ones that I want to talk about specifically, and this kind of leads into loneliness and all the other emotions that I've talked about, then I also want to talk about acceptance, because that can be your superpower if you are willing to learn how to accept. So, and we'll talk about that. But what I want to give you first is, if we're talking about anxiety, and this is a pretty common mental health challenge or emotion that people have. And really, it is, according to the book, it is a negative hallucination of what hasn't happened yet. So you're looking into the future. When people are thinking about the future more often than they're thinking about like the present right now, like me sitting here, you watching me, you are in your present right now. You're paying attention to the words that I'm saying. You are watching the screen with me on the screen. You're sitting, you're standing, wherever you happen to be. This is your now. This is our present state currently. But if I were thinking about the future, like all the meetings that I have to do later, the grief and loss support group that I'm doing later, if I was like thinking about all those, or maybe I'm thinking about Christmas, or I'm thinking about New Year's, or I'm thinking about all the other things in the future, that will get me feeling pretty like kind of overwhelmed, and like that anxiety piece comes up. So if we can shift into the present now, like, what am I doing right now? How am I breathing right now? What am I saying right now? I am present in this moment. That helps to eliminate anxiety. And I'm not saying that this is easy by any means. I am just telling you it is a way to be aware of our emotions in that moment. What am I thinking about? Can I acknowledge that I am thinking about something in the future, and I can acknowledge that I need to come back to my present moment, my state, my now, versus thinking about the future. I can worry about that later. I can think about that later. But right now, I want to be present in this moment. And how do we live more in the now? We can still do things for the future, but we don't need to live in the future, right? So hopefully that makes sense. If not, drop a comment and I'll answer your question. This is live again. So you can do the live chat if you're like, I have no idea what you just said. Send me a message. Okay. So, then talking about depression. So depression, according to this, is indulging in helplessness as a luxury. That's a lot, right? Like if you think about that, you're like, I'm indulging in helplessness as a luxury. So I'm having the emotions, or I'm feeling helpless in this moment. I'm feeling helpless in the way that my life is going. I'm feeling helpless in what my future looks like. I am feeling helpless of helping myself. And I'm taking all of that energy and I'm like holding on to it like it's my baby blanket. And I'm not going to let it go because it's a luxury that I get to do this. So you can take that kind of whichever way, but that's how I translate what that means, and it may mean differently for you. That's my model of the world, how I look at it. But if I'm thinking about depression, I'm taking all the negatives and like wrapping them into this baby blanket that I'm holding on to for dear life because it's my security blanket right now. And it's weighing me down in a way. That was interesting what just popped in my head. Like it's like the security blanket, but it's weighing me down and I'm not willing to let it go. And so the way that we can shift this, again, it's all just about awareness, giving you some more choice in how you're looking at your life in those moments. How can I change this? Or maybe how can I reframe this situation? Am I dedicated to that baby blanket? I'm not letting it go. Or is there a way that I can start to alleviate some of the pressure that it's putting on me? I had a guest. So if you happen to watch earlier this year, I had a guest, Curtis Jones. He talked about how he was depressed. Excuse me. He was depressed for 9 years. And one day he woke up and he said, I'm not going to judge myself for 24 hours, because he understood that the weight that he was putting on himself was this judgment, the judgment of everything that he did. He judged himself on how other people were judging him. He judged himself on how he was showing up. He judged himself every single second. And that's where that weight of that blanket came on him, the judgment. It was a blanket of judgment that he was like holding on. So it created this depression that he was in. And that day he woke up and he said, I'm not going to judge myself for 24 hours and see how it goes. And he said from that moment moving forward, it was like a whole new life just happened for him. And he slowly started to come out of this depression that weighed him down for 9 years. So if you kind of think about it in that way, what are you holding on to? What is this helplessness or this feeling that is coming up when you think about depression? And again, this is all just for awareness and how we can start to shift how we might be feeling. So, fear is another one that comes up pretty often. It comes up for me, actually, probably more often Well, no, not more often than not, but a lot. It does come up for me a lot. But it's entertaining a fantasy of a danger that has not yet happened. And that's going back to that fight or flight response I was talking about with your specifically the adrenaline. We have the fight or flight response that we are conditioned to um fear. So if you really truly think about I don't want to like overly jump into like too many heavy things, but so if you think about the media, if you watch the news, if you're somebody who watches the news often, you're probably going to see more negative than you're going to see positive, right? And that creates this fear. Like we live in a fear-based society. I want you to fear going out. I want you to fear walking down the street because you might get robbed or you might get shot or you might get hit by a car or you might get COVID or there's so many things, right? That if I step outside this door, I might. And that's the fear. We oftentimes again focus on the negative versus the positive. So how can we shift that? Like I know that I am safe when I step outside my door. I know that my body is really strong and it can fight off any disease. I am healthy. I am happy. I am lucky. I am loved. I love myself. How can we start to shift these conversations and start to look at the positive versus the negative and release the fear? So I am actually listening to Gabby Bernstein's book, The Universe. Okay, totally have to get you the title because it's simply been amazing in how I'm looking. The Universe Has Your Back. So Gabby Bernstein's The Universe Has Your Back. I've been listening to her Audible. I love listening to books. I have lots of books back here. I've read some of them, but not all of them. I've listened to quite a few of them. So, um, but she talks about how we can learn how to shift out of fear and into love. And that was so powerful for me because we don't have to hold on to fear. We can shift into love. It can be self love, like I was just talking about earlier. It can be love for other people. And when we have this love, we're really truly releasing those chemicals, which is the oxytocin. Oxytocin is your love chemical. So, how can we shift out of fear and into love and look at all situations from the perspective and the eyes of love instead of fear? And I will say personally, I know after my sister passed and my son had seizures, I was fearful of everything. And I didn't know that that was what was running my life. I truly went into this fear based thought pattern and I was going 0 to red in 2.5 seconds. And I was just living in fear because I was scared of losing somebody else. I was scared that my child was going to have a seizure and die. Like I had all these fears that were coming up. But once I acknowledged them and I was aware of these thought patterns, I was able to take those tools out of my tool belt and use them to shift out of that fear. I had somebody help me. I had a coach, I had a mentor who was helping me change these patterns. But once I was aware of them, then I could change them, which was incredible. So that's what I love about her book is that she's really talking about how you can shift out of fear and shift into love. And I love that. So, um, let's see if there's any other ones on here. Oh, loneliness, because that was the whole thing of today. So, loneliness is, according to this, is placing responsibility for your happiness on someone else. Oh, this may be a big one for some people to hear because you may be feeling like I'm not expecting anybody else to make me happy, or I don't, I'm not shifting it or placing the responsibility on someone else. I just feel lonely. Well, let's think about it. What are you feeling lonely about? Is it that maybe you don't have people around you? Is it maybe that you um, don't have the support that you maybe feel like you need? Is it that you, I'm trying to think of some of the thoughts that might pop into people's heads. Um, they didn't invite me to XYZ. I don't have the funds to participate in blah, blah, blah. Um, Nobody comes and hangs out with me. Nobody calls me. Nobody texts me, right? Like these are different thoughts that can pop up and then shift into this loneliness. But I am at that moment, I am putting that responsibility on somebody else. Whereas we can take that control back. We can take our power back and we can text somebody. We could call somebody. Maybe they won't respond, but is it okay to say to ourselves, I'm going to try to reach out to so and so. And if they don't respond, that's okay. I don't have to feel like they don't want anything to do with me. I don't have to feel like I'm lonely. But I can make an effort also to reach out to so and so. And maybe they're not the right so and so to reach out to at that moment. But who else maybe could I reach out to? Is there somebody outside of my network, outside of my friends, outside of my family that maybe would be willing to talk now? And some really great resources for this, specifically on the BCC Evolution website. We have a trusted resource hub, which has there's free resources, there's paid resources, there's organizations, there's all kinds. But under our, I think I named it non-crisis, and I think I added free resources. I've been changing the website, so I apologize if I got it wrong, but I think I might have updated it to free resources. But there is like 7 Cups is a great resource. They have listeners 24/7. It's chat messaging or text messaging. They have listeners around the world. So again, it's 24/7. That's a resource. Like maybe you just need somebody to listen at that moment and nobody else is available. Well, these people are, and it's a free resource, which is amazing. Another great one is, and a lot of people don't think about this, but the National Crisis Line. They actually will you can chat, call, text. They'll talk to you about anything. You don't have to be in a crisis to reach out to them. The same with 988. Actually, the National Crisis, my mouth and my brain are going too fast. The National Crisis Text Line sometimes fields the 988. So you may be kind of overlapping in those worlds, but when I talk to them about potentially partnering with my nonprofit, they said one of the number one reasons why people reach out is relationship with self and relationship with others. And so they will talk to you or text with you whenever you need. Again, it's a 24/7 line that you can text or call or chat, and they will talk to you. They don't just say, are you in a crisis? Nope. Okay, goodbye. No, they have listeners also that will help you so that you don't feel lonely. So there are lots of resources. I do, like I said earlier, I do a grief and loss support group actually right after this. It's at 12:30 Mountain Standard Time it's called Circles. It's an app that you download. Most all of their groups are free. I know there are some paid ones, like if you get their subscription, which I think is now called Circles Plus, you can go into other groups, but most of their groups are free and it's great. I mean, that community is amazingly supportive and it's only your voice. So you don't have to get all, you don't have to worry about video or any of that. It's simply voices. And I know that so many of the people on this platform have actually moved to like Facebook groups and they support each other outside of the platform, which is amazing. So there are lots of free resources out there across the world that you can take a part part, or you can be a part of, to help in maybe those feelings of loneliness that are coming up. And I want to give you a couple because I said it earlier and I don't want to forget. I told you that I would give you a couple things that I have been doing for sleeping. So, if sleep is one of those things that's coming up that maybe your body is not producing enough melatonin and you're not getting the good sleep that you're needing, which in turn can bring up a lot more of these emotions that we've been talking about: the fear, the loneliness, the depression, the anxiety. These all are our brains like over processing things that are coming up, situations, whatever it happens to be. But if you're not getting sleep, that could be a huge factor of what's going on in your brain. So, some of the things that I have been doing, I got a spray thanks to actually one of my board members, Carly, who has also been a guest on my show. It's a magnesium spray. I got it from Sprouts. I did see that they had it at Whole Foods. Probably one of your, I probably should have brought it down here, but I didn't. Probably one of your, if you ever want to know like what it looks like, just send me a message and I'll send you a link. But so our bodies don't have enough magnesium in them. So vitamin D, magnesium, and B vitamins, D vitamins, and magnesium. Our food now does not give us the nutrition that we need, nor do pills. Pills tend to, you take it and you maybe get like your body absorbs maybe 30% of it. Maybe if it's really, really good and it breaks down as you're swallowing it, maybe you'll absorb about 50%, unless you're doing like a liquid shake that is, that has all of it in it. You're not really, your body's not absorbing the nutrients that they need. So I have and got from my friend this magnesium spray that I spray on my body because I also had a guest at one point in time. She talked about the importance of magnesium in our bodies and that we as humans now do not produce enough magnesium. And so we need to supplement. And the best ones are topicals or sprays that you can get into your body, into your skin, so that's actually absorbing those nutrients. So I can also give you a link to hers because she makes it's all like organic, amazing. I tried hers too, and it was incredible. So that has been really, really helpful. Get to the point, Kelli, right? Really, really helpful for sleep. And I have even noticed in the past, I was not a person who slept well. I would wake up constantly. And in the mornings, I would feel exhausted. And I have been that way for years and years and years and years. If you saw me without makeup, I have really dark circles around my eyes. I don't know if that's because of the lack of sleep or what it is specifically, but there's some sort of deficiency in my body that is causing that. And so I have been doing a lot more with making sure that I use the magnesium spray, which is amazing. So if you are somebody who's having trouble sleeping, magnesium before you go to bed. Don't do it like in the mornings. That's what my husband was taking the pills in the mornings. And he's like, I was wondering why I was so tired. Like, you got to do it at night. So magnesium spray is amazing to help with sleep. Also, on that trusted resource hub that I told you about, I do have a coach on there that specifically, which he has also been a guest, they specifically help with sleep in youth and in adults. So sleepably. They are sleep coaches, so they can figure out without like prescribing or going straight to a pill or whatever. They can help you figure out what is that underlying thing that's happening so that you can help get better sleep, because sleep is so, so important for your brain. It heals your brain. It heals your body. It allows you to be more alert and attentive. And then I am getting really close to the end of this. So I want to talk about acceptance, because acceptance is something that maybe you haven't thought of in the past. If we can start to accept ourselves, we can accept the situation that we might be in. We can start looking at things from a different perspective, because our brains, again, we have that fight or flight. And when we go towards pain, that is when we have anger, we have fear, we have depression, we have loneliness. All of these feelings come up, and then we may shift into a coping mechanism, a negative coping mechanism, like drugs, alcohol, gambling, any type of negative self-harm, the suicidal thoughts, depression, right? This is when we shift into those negative coping mechanisms when we're going towards pain. Although nobody wants to go towards pain, but we do that as humans because we don't know how to shift to move away from pain. And so some things that we can do to move away from pain is building in our purpose, having an understanding of what our vision is. What's our vision in life? What do we want to create? Where are we going? I know my nonprofit has a vision, but I have my own personal vision where I'm going in this thing that I call life. And I read that all this time. I have a mission. I'm on a mission with my nonprofit to help people like you, give you the resources, the information, the tools. That is my personal mission. And my mission with my nonprofit is to educate 1 million people by 2030. We have a mission. And then our goals, like what are our goals? What are we trying to get to? How can we obtain those step by step by step? And then also forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't for them. If it's somebody else that maybe you haven't forgiven, it's not about them. It's for you. Forgiveness is for you. It's not for anybody else. It's for you. And it's okay to forgive. And then lastly, acceptance. How can we accept? We may not agree with what I'm saying, but you may not agree with anything that I'm saying, but you can accept these resources. You can accept these tools. You can accept the information that I'm giving you. You can also accept the situation that you might be in. It's not agreeing with it, but you can learn to accept. And maybe it's somebody else. Maybe somebody has a behavior like, okay, take a youth, for instance. Maybe they are out doing drugs. Maybe they are smoking weed, whatever it happens to be, right? We're not agreeing with the behavior, or a family member, right? A family member across the board. We're not agreeing with the behavior, but we can accept the situation that they're in. So hopefully that makes sense about acceptance. How can we accept the moment right now? It's okay. I'm here in the present. I'm accepting that I am experiencing fear. I am accepting that I'm experiencing depression or loneliness. It doesn't have to be my identity. I don't have to agree with it, but I can accept the situation as it is currently. And then I can start shifting into, again, going back up, forgiveness, goals, mission, vision, and my purpose. I hope this has been beneficial for you. I know in me talking through it again, it is very beneficial for me. And I do have a guest coming up this Wednesday. So no matter what you do, make sure you come back and join me this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time for another episode of Make Mental Health Matter. Thank you so much for watching. Reach out to me if you have any questions about anything that I shared today. And again, one very, very last time, if you need those resources, you can go to bccevolution.org and find out more information and resources under our resources and trusted resource hub. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you back on Wednesday.